Chosen one, the Buck Moon portal is open, and the final days of July are bringing an important question to the surface. What are you actually prepared to carry into the next chapter of your life? This is not only about making wishes under a full moon or waiting for a sudden sign from the universe. The deeper meaning of this period is connected to what has been developing quietly inside you throughout July. Certain decisions have become harder to avoid. Some relationships no longer feel the way they did at the beginning of the month. A plan you kept postponing may now be returning to your mind with greater urgency. At the same time, things you once wanted badly may have started losing their emotional power. That change matters. The buck moon is traditionally associated with a stage of visible growth. A young buck's antlers develop gradually, long before they reach their full strength. From the outside, the process may appear slow, but a real structural change is already taking place. The same idea applies to you during this lunar period. You may not have received every external result you were waiting for, yet your standards, priorities, and emotional reactions have been changing beneath the surface. You are beginning to notice what repeatedly drains you. You are seeing the difference between a genuine opportunity and an offer that depends on your desperation. You are becoming less interested in explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand. These shifts may not look dramatic, but they change the direction of your life because they influence what you will accept next. Before July ends, there are 7 things you need to establish. They are not objects, rituals, or lucky symbols. They are practical signs that the inner growth of this month is becoming part of your real life. Each one strengthens the next. Together, they help you leave July with more than a temporary emotional experience. The 7th is especially important because it turns everything else into evidence. Many people feel inspired during a full moon, make promises to themselves, and return to the same routine a few days later. This message is designed to prevent that. Before we continue, write "I am ready for the next chapter" in the comments. Use it as a commitment to take at least one real step before the month ends. #1. A boundary you are prepared to maintain. The first thing you need is one clear boundary that does not disappear when your emotions change. Most people can set a boundary when they are angry. The real test comes later, when loneliness appears, guilt becomes uncomfortable, or the other person returns with a softer tone. A boundary has value only when it remains in place after the original emotion has passed. Your boundary may involve a relationship. Perhaps someone repeatedly contacts you when they need reassurance but disappears whenever you ask for consistency. You may care about them, understand their struggles, and still recognize that the pattern is damaging your peace. In that case, your boundary is not about punishing the person. It is about deciding what kind of access is compatible with your emotional health. For another person, the issue may involve work. You might be known as the one who always handles extra responsibilities, solves emergencies, or stays late without receiving recognition. Being capable has slowly turned into being permanently available. A healthy boundary could mean refusing tasks that belong to someone else or asking for clear terms before accepting more responsibility. The boundary may also be internal. You might need to stop treating every mistake as evidence that you are failing. Perhaps one negative comment controls your mood for an entire day, even when 10 other people responded positively. Your boundary could involve the way you speak to yourself after something goes wrong. Choose one situation where the same problem has repeated often enough for you to understand it clearly. Write a sentence describing what you will no longer participate in. Keep the language simple and specific. For example, I will not continue conversations in which my concerns are repeatedly dismissed. I will not accept last-minute demands that could have been communicated earlier. I will not keep checking on someone who has made no effort to maintain contact. Then decide what the boundary looks like in practice. If the person sends the same message again, what will you do? If the request returns, how will you respond? If guilt appears, what will remind you why the boundary became necessary? Planning this response in advance matters because old patterns often return when you are tired, emotional, or caught off guard. The final days of July may bring one more opportunity to see whether the lesson has become part of your behavior. Someone may return, a familiar invitation may appear, an old situation may suddenly become available again. Do not judge the moment only by how good it feels initially. Compare it with the pattern you already know. A return is not always proof of change. Sometimes it simply shows you whether the door is still open. #2. A decision you will stop reopening. The second thing you need is one decision that you are prepared to stop reconsidering without new information. There is a difference between thoughtful reflection and endless internal debate. Reflection helps you understand a situation more clearly. Repetition keeps you emotionally trapped inside the same question. You may already know that a relationship cannot continue in its current form. You may know that a project needs to begin, that a financial habit has to change, or that an environment is affecting your confidence. Yet each time the emotional pressure becomes uncomfortable, you reopen the decision as though nothing has been learned. This can feel responsible because you are examining every possibility. In reality, constant reconsideration often delays the consequences of accepting what you already know. Ask yourself which question has consumed the most energy during July. Are you still asking whether someone will eventually become consistent despite months of the same behavior? Are you debating whether to begin a plan even though the preparation is already complete? Are you waiting for another sign because the first answer requires a difficult action? A settled decision does not mean you can never change your mind. New facts may appear. Circumstances can develop. The point is to stop restarting the same debate when nothing new has happened. Write the decision in direct language. Avoid phrases such as maybe, someday, or I think I should. Those words often reveal that you are still trying to escape responsibility for the choice. Instead of writing, maybe I need some distance, write, I am creating distance until the situation becomes clear. Instead of saying, I hope I start next month, decide on the first action and the date you will take it. Once the decision is written, identify what repeatedly causes you to question it. Is it nostalgia, fear of being alone, financial uncertainty, another person's opinion, or discomfort with change? Knowing the trigger helps you respond without confusing it with new evidence. For example, missing someone does not automatically mean the relationship became healthier. Feeling afraid before launching a project does not mean the project is wrong. Discomfort is often part of a meaningful transition. When you stop reopening settled decisions, you recover a large amount of mental energy. That energy becomes available for planning, creating, healing, or moving forward. Clarity does not remove every difficulty, but it prevents you from fighting yourself while dealing with it. Before July ends, choose one decision and let it become the foundation for your next action. #3. A plan that has not been exposed to everyone. The third thing you need is one important intention that has not been discussed with too many people. Sharing a plan can be helpful when you speak with someone qualified, supportive, or directly involved. The problem begins when an idea is revealed before it has enough structure to survive multiple opinions. You may recognize this pattern. A new idea arrives and you feel excited. Before taking the first practical step, you tell several people. One person likes it, another questions whether it is realistic, and someone else explains how they would do it differently. Soon, the original idea becomes surrounded by expectations that did not exist when it first came to you. You then spend more time defending the plan than developing it. Early progress is often sensitive. A project, financial decision, health goal, or personal change may need a protected stage where the focus remains on action rather than explanation. This does not mean secrecy for the sake of appearing mysterious. It means choosing carefully who receives access before the foundation is ready. Identify one thing you want to develop quietly during the transition into August. It might be a business idea, a creative project, a savings goal, a change in your routine, or a decision to leave an unhealthy situation. Write the intention privately, then list the next 3 practical steps. Keep those steps realistic. If the plan is too large, the list can become another source of pressure. For a financial goal, the first step might be reviewing recurring expenses or setting an automatic transfer. For a creative project, it could be completing the first draft rather than discussing the entire future of the work. For a health goal, it may involve preparing tomorrow's food, arranging a medical appointment, or creating a schedule you can actually maintain. For a relationship standard, the first step may be reducing contact with someone whose behavior has remained unclear. The important point is that your intention begins producing evidence before it produces attention. Talking about a goal creates an emotional reward. People react, encourage you, or ask questions. The brain can mistake that social response for progress. Later, when the actual work requires patience and repetition, much of the initial excitement has already been used. Allow this plan to grow through action first. You do not need everyone to understand the seed. Let the result explain itself when it becomes strong enough to be seen. #4. Space for something new to enter. The fourth thing you need is an area of your life that is no longer completely occupied by the past. People often ask for a new opportunity while their time, attention, and emotional energy remain committed to maintaining old situations. They want a healthier relationship, but continue spending hours monitoring someone who cannot offer clarity. They want to begin a project, but every evening is filled with obligations they accepted automatically. They ask for peace while keeping constant access open to people who create conflict. Something new requires room. This space can be physical. You may clear a desk, drawer, shelf, or corner associated with an old identity. The action does not need to be dramatic. Its purpose is to create a visible place connected to the next phase. The space may be digital. You could remove conversations you repeatedly reread, organize files connected to unfinished work, or unfollow accounts that constantly produce comparison and self-doubt. For many people, the most important space will be time. Your calendar may be so full of responsibilities, favors, and other people's needs that there is no consistent period available for your own growth. In that case, the task is to protect a specific block of time. Perhaps 2 evenings each week become unavailable for unnecessary plans. Maybe the first hour of the morning is reserved for your project before messages begin directing your attention elsewhere. Creating space can feel uncomfortable because the old activity is removed before the new result arrives. That gap may initially feel like emptiness. The instinct will be to fill it quickly by contacting someone, accepting another commitment, or returning to a familiar distraction. Try not to do that immediately. The empty period allows you to learn what your mind does when it is no longer occupied by the old pattern. You may discover that you do not truly miss the relationship, you miss the intensity. You may realize that your schedule was protecting you from the fear of beginning. You might notice relief where you expected loneliness. The purpose of space is not to wait passively for the universe to place something inside it. Space gives you the practical ability to respond when an idea, opportunity, or new connection appears. Before July ends, create one area in which the next chapter can actually exist. #5. A reminder connected to a real behavior. The fifth thing you need is a physical reminder of the change you are making. Spiritual realizations can feel very clear during emotionally intense periods. A few days later, routine returns. Work, messages, responsibilities, and familiar habits take over. The insight that felt life-changing becomes difficult to remember in the moment you need it most. A physical reminder can help bridge that gap. This does not need to be a mystical object. It can be a notebook connected to your plan, a keychain, a photograph, a written note on your desk, or something simple that represents the decision you made. The object matters only when it is linked to a specific behavior. A notebook can remind you to work on the project for 20 focused minutes. A bracelet may remind you not to respond immediately when a message triggers anxiety. A note beside your computer could remind you that you no longer need to explain a boundary repeatedly. A photograph might reconnect you with a time when you trusted yourself more clearly. Without an associated behavior, the object becomes decoration. The goal is to create a prompt that helps the new identity appear in ordinary situations. Choose something you will see regularly. Decide what you will do when you notice it. For example, each time you see the notebook, open it and complete one small task. When you notice the bracelet, check whether the decision you are about to make comes from clarity or emotional pressure. When you read the note on your desk, return your attention to the priority you selected. Identity develops through repeated evidence. Every small action teaches your mind that the change is real. You are no longer only describing the person you want to become. You are creating situations in which that person behaves differently. This physical reminder is especially useful after July ends, when the full moon energy no longer feels as immediate. The true value of the message will be measured by what remains when the emotional intensity passes. #6. Freedom from one specific outcome. The sixth thing you need is the ability to move forward without requiring one person, opportunity, or outcome to behave exactly as you hope. This is not the same as giving up on what you want. It means separating the deeper desire from the single form you have attached to it. You may want love, but believe it must come through one particular person. You may want financial progress, but assume it can happen only through one job, investment, business, or opportunity. You may want closure, but believe peace depends on receiving an apology. When the desired form becomes the only acceptable path, your future becomes controlled by something outside you. Consider the apology. If another person refuses to accept responsibility, do they receive permanent authority over your healing? You can acknowledge what happened, learn from the experience, and still move forward without their agreement. The same applies to an opportunity. A rejection may close one route without closing the larger goal. If you spend all your energy attempting to force the original form to work, you may fail to notice another direction that serves you better. Ask yourself what you currently believe must happen before you are allowed to continue. I need them to admit they were wrong. I need this exact opportunity to succeed. I need to know every step before I begin. I need everyone to understand my decision. Once you identify the demand, replace it with a position that protects the desire without surrendering your future. I can move forward without receiving their agreement. I remain committed to the goal even if the route changes. I can take the next responsible step without knowing the entire outcome. I do not need universal approval to make a decision that is right for my life. This kind of release reduces desperation. When you no longer believe that one door controls your destiny, you can evaluate it more honestly. You stop ignoring obvious problems simply because you are afraid no alternative exists. Freedom from one outcome does not make you passive. It helps you act without using fear as the main decision maker. Before July ends, identify the form you have been trying to force and give yourself permission to remain open to a better route. #7. One completed action. The seventh thing you need is the most practical. One completed action that proves the month changed something in your behavior. Insight is valuable, but it does not become part of your life until it influences a decision. Many people feel deeply connected to spiritual messages, understand their patterns, and make strong promises during important lunar events. A week later, nothing has changed because no action was taken while the realization was clear. Choose one step that can be completed before July ends. It should be meaningful but manageable. You might submit an application, publish the first version of your work, schedule an appointment, transfer money into savings, cancel a commitment you accepted from guilt, organize the documents needed for a decision, or send a clear message that ends unnecessary ambiguity. The action should serve your future after the emotional intensity has passed. Avoid dramatic gestures that create more confusion. Sending an angry message may feel powerful for 5 minutes, but it may not improve the situation. Publicly announcing a plan can create a tension without creating progress. A useful action reduces uncertainty or establishes movement. If you are leaving a situation, complete one practical part of that process. If you are beginning a project, create the first real piece. If you are setting a boundary, apply it where the pattern normally returns. If your priority is financial stability, move the money or adjust the expense before another impulse takes control. The action does not need to complete the entire journey. Its purpose is to create proof that you are no longer waiting for change to happen without your participation. When August begins, you should be able to identify one visible result and say, "This exists because I made a different decision." That evidence helps the new behavior continue after the full moon window closes. Why these 7 things work together. These 7 elements support different parts of the same transition. The boundary determines what can enter your next chapter. The decision gives your energy a clear direction. The private plan prevents outside opinions from interrupting early progress. Creating space gives the change room to develop. The physical reminder helps you maintain the behavior after the initial motivation fades. Releasing one fixed outcome keeps you open to better possibilities. The completed action turns the entire process into something real. You do not need to establish all 7 perfectly in one night. Perfection would become another reason to delay. The goal is to become honest about where your structure is currently weak. Perhaps you already have a strong decision but no protected plan. Maybe you know what you want but have not created any time for it. You may have written intentions repeatedly while avoiding the single action that would make the change visible. Identify the missing piece. The final days of July may also bring a test connected to the old pattern. A person could return with the words you once wanted to hear. An abandoned goal may become attractive again because it feels familiar. You might feel tempted to ignore the new boundary for one evening. Pause before responding. Ask whether the situation matches your current standards or only your previous desire. The 7 things help you answer that question with greater clarity. You have a boundary to compare the behavior against. You have a decision that does not need to be reopened without evidence. You have a plan requiring your attention and an action showing that another direction has already begun. The past may still be available. That does not mean it remains appropriate. What to expect as July ends. Do not expect every external result to appear immediately when the month changes. Internal transitions usually become visible through behavior before they become visible through circumstances. The first difference may be reduced mental noise. Decisions become easier because you are no longer arguing with yourself every day. You recognize familiar problems earlier and spend less time trying to turn them into something else. Some relationships may adjust. People who value you will learn how to interact with the new boundary. Those who depended on unlimited access may become distant or irritated. Their response provides information. Your focus may become narrower as well. Activities that once filled your time may lose their attraction. You might feel less interested in constant updates, gossip, or explaining every step of your process. This is not necessarily withdrawal. It can be a sign that your attention is returning to priorities that were previously neglected. The new direction may begin through ordinary events rather than a dramatic breakthrough. You notice useful information. A conversation becomes easier. An opportunity appears because you finally completed the preparation required to recognize it. The external world responds differently when your actions stop contradicting your stated goals. You are no longer asking for healthier love while remaining emotionally attached to confusion. You are not asking for financial change while refusing to examine your habits. You are not asking for visibility while hiding every piece of your work. Progress becomes more consistent when your choices support the future you describe. The final warning. During the last hours of July, avoid constantly checking whether the process is working. You may set the boundary, then monitor whether the person noticed. You might complete an action and immediately search for a reward. When the result does not appear within a few hours, doubt returns. Give the change time to settle. The buck moon represents growth that developed before it became visible. The same principle applies to your next chapter. Some effects will appear only after you maintain the new behavior long enough for your circumstances to adjust. Continue protecting the boundary after the guilt fades. Keep working on the plan when nobody asks about it. Allow the space to remain open instead of filling it with another distraction. Use the reminder when the old behavior becomes tempting. Stay open to another route when the original outcome does not cooperate. Build on the completed action rather than waiting for immediate confirmation. Consistency after the emotional moment is what determines whether the shift becomes permanent. Chosen one, July has already shown you important information. It revealed which relationships can support your growth and which ones require you to remain exhausted. It showed you where your energy disappears and which decisions you have been postponing. It exposed the difference between being genuinely valued and being useful to someone who refuses to take responsibility for their own life. Do not enter August pretending you did not see these patterns. You do not need to announce that you have changed. The difference will appear through your availability, your standards, your decisions, and the work you finally complete. Before July ends, choose the area that needs the most attention. Establish the boundary, settle the decision, protect the plan, create the space, select a reminder, loosen the attachment, and complete one action that supports the future you want. The Buck Moon portal is open, but its value does not come from simply knowing that an energetic window exists. Its value comes from using this period to make a choice you can still respect after the intensity has passed. Write, "I am taking the first step" in the comments when you know what your action will be. Then complete it before the month ends. The next chapter does not need another dramatic promise. It needs evidence that you are prepared to participate in the change you have been asking for.